Hi, this is Kendra from Pencil and Pigment, and today I'm doing a sketchbook tour of my illustrated garden journal. This is the Kokio Level Book. I have filled a couple of these over the years. I filled their sketchbook. I did monochromatic people and animals with colored pencil. I have done their transit book. This was sort of an art journal with ink and ephemera. And this level book I did botanicals. So let's get started. All right, so basically we're re-gardening and landscaping a huge chunk of our front lawn area. We don't really have lawn, and where we live, it's perfectly okay to have a garden in your front yard. And since that's where the bulk of our sunshine is, that's what we're revamping. So for supplies, I used a lot of colored pencils, mostly the Polychromos by Faber-Castell, and I have a couple Luminous by Caran d'Ache. For the fine liner, I used my Rotring Isograph, and this is just a refillable fine liner technical pen. A pencil sharpener, Mobius and Rupert, and for these circles, I used my Alvin. This is the Circle Master template, and they have a bunch of these in different sizes. I will link all these supplies in the description box below in case you're interested. So I started off with perennial herbs. So we have an annual herb garden in our kitchen, but for perennials, we don't have a lot of their herbs. So Greek sage, pineapple sage, all these are ones that come back year after, like they don't die off. They're not annual. Oregano dittany. There's hundreds of varieties in a bunch of these different plants. This is Syrian oregano. And some of these have interesting blooms. Silver thyme. Lemon thyme. So if you do a lot of cooking and a lot of experimenting in the kitchen, trying your hand with growing fresh herbs always enhances the taste of your food. Caraway thyme. And it's just, oh, our doggo says hi. It's just the leaves that are edible. Wild bergamot. This is a fun flower. English lavender. Lavender is delicious in desserts, and I like it in lemonade. So some people just grow it because they like it dried or in floral arrangements and stuff, but it is edible. Miner's lettuce, which is something that grows well in the shade. It's a really unusual plant. This is an annual herb, but we create little microclimates within our area and we can cover it up so it kind of stays alive through the winter. A German chamomile, so I'm in annuals now. There's a perennial chamomile that's a little bit more bitter, but it does not grow in our area. So, and again, white flowers are hard. Like that's a hard thing to denote. So I just did pale gray. Johnny Jump Up. So the difference between violas and pansies, it's minute and they're really pretty. We put them in our salads mostly. Sometimes we'll put a couple petals and stuff in pancakes, but they have kind of a savory flavor. They're not, I mean, you could crystallize them and then put them on cupcakes or whatever, like I've seen people do, but we just pluck them and stick them in salads because it's fun. Sunflowers. So obviously you can eat the seeds, but you can also roast the heads if you're into that kind of thing. Marigolds. These are pretty popular for like weddings in India, but they are delicious and they're really good at attracting pollinators. So when you are planting a garden, we go 50-50. So with 50% fruits and vegetables, 50% flowers to attract the pollinators. Peppermint. We have spearmint growing indoor, but we really wanted a peppermint, or we're thinking about a chocolate mint. We're not really sure. Ginger. So we're moving into things we want to try in pots. Obviously, mint has to be grown in a pot because it takes over the world. Yeah, I'm talking about you, mint. Ginger is another one we want to try growing in a pot inside, so it's a climate that we can control. The same with turmeric. We eat a lot of turmeric, and I'm not sure how successful this is going to be. Nasturtiums. This is another one that we have to stick it in a pot because while it's some places say annual and some places say you could grow it as a perennial, ours doesn't die off. It blooms all year round. Even I think it has to snow, and we don't have snow every year. So it just takes over. It fills in, takes over, it'll die back, and then it comes back with a vengeance. So we're sticking ours into a pot and containing it that way. Fig. So we're moving on to fruit trees. Planting a fruit tree. Yeah, we really want to grow fig. I like them. They're delicious. And pomegranate. We're going to plant a pomegranate tree as well. We called and had them map out all our lines in our yard to make sure we don't hit anything or hurt anything when we go to dig with a shovel. And then a Granny Smith apple. So the apple was kind of a contentious thing because we love apples, but it's like we don't have room to plant a ton of apples. We can only plant one. So it has to be self-pollinating. So finding an apple that grows in our area that self-pollinates, we had two options. A golden, delicious, or Granny Smith, and we're still in negotiations. I drew a Granny Smith because it's my favorite apple. I like tart. I really like tart apples. I like, I like Asian pears. I like things a little bit more tart and crunchy. I don't know. But it may end up being a golden delicious, and then blueberries. All the blueberries. And because we have deer, because we have a wide variety of birds living in the forest, everything is sort of protected with nets and like these weird cage block things we've created to protect stuff. Red huckleberry. Yep. Make jams and jellies. Red currants. A lot of fun. Really pretty. Again, all these things have to be protected. The gummy berry. Yeah. So, I mean, some of these things you might not be interested in. Here's a jastaberry. I'm not sure if we're going to grow one of these, but they grow in our area. So it's something to think about. Yeah. It's basically what we want to grow and what we actually eat and what we can harvest and do things with. And like where we live now, we have a lot of wild blackberries. So I didn't put that in here because that's not something we're landscaping. It's something that exists in our backyard, our side backyard sort of. And all we can do is keep the blackberries sort of pruned a little bit a couple times a year. But there's so many. And the bears come through and the deers come through and all the things come through that we freeze. We freeze a bunch and we can a bunch and then we dehydrate a bunch and turn it into a powder. So we can add blackberry powder to smoothies all year round. Like there's a bunch of things you can do with different fruits, especially if you have a crop that's just too huge. So while our blackberries are ready in like August, September, we have them all year round because of all the weird things we do with them. Hope that helps. Wild cabbage. So I've moved on to like biannual perennial vegetables. And there's a bunch of broccolis and kales and cabbages that are perennial. So if you what we've done is we've planted one between things. So it's kind of protected from the elements and it just doesn't die off that way. Egyptian walking onion. Perennial onions. I grow chives inside and we do a little green onion sometimes inside, replanting things we've cut, but yeah, we do a lot of onions. Scarlet runner beans. This is a perennial vine. And again, this is something we have to cover in the winter. I talked about planting four seeds of beans and just having too many. So it's a one seed in the ground thing because we can only eat so much. And then, we don't want to burn out. But the flowers are edible as well, which is why I included a little bit of them in my circle. Asparagus. I love asparagus. I like to dip my asparagus in ketchup. Fun fact. Yeah, I know. Hibiscus minute, and the leaves and the flowers are both edible. New Zealand spinach. lima bean. I know they're not for everybody, but they are delicious and good for you. Some of these things people don't like to eat, but we do. Air potatoes. I don't know if you're familiar with air potatoes. This is a potato that does not grow in the ground. It's a vine and it grows on the vine. So it's a perennial. It can be invasive. So we haven't planted this, and I'm not sure we're going to. My husband is much more strict about things staying invasive than I am. Like, I'll try a thing, and if the plant freaks out and takes over, then I rip it out. But my husband's like, we're not even trying it. So we're still in talks over this one. I'm not sure if we're going to stick it in the ground. We have so many regular annual potatoes and sweet potatoes we can do that I just thought that this was just so much fun. And as an idea, so I have this spot here for notes. If we ever go to grow it, my husband may put, like, dude, no. It says 60 feet tall. Like, there's no way. Like, our neighbors don't want air potatoes. Tomatoes. So we live in a cooler beach climate. So the San Francisco fog tomato is one that grows in colder climates. But you can cloche and you can do like individual tiny little greenhouse things over each plant if you want to grow other varieties. Like if you really just love Brandywine tomatoes or green zebras or something that require a lot of heat, you could just create a thing for them. Georgia Jet sweet potatoes. These are annuals. They grow well here. Love sweet potatoes. You can start them indoors. Just stick toothpicks in them and stick them in a jar and watch them take off. Cosmic purple carrot. Purple carrots. Purple and red carrots have a lot of flavor, I think. Transylvania garlic. That's a fun one. Braid it when we harvest it and then have it for a bunch of months. So now we're on to ground covers. We do have an area that is completely closed off and surrounded by cement, which is the only reason why I feel comfortable doing a ground cover, because that's what ground covers do. They just take over. And I needed an area where I don't have to weed. Like, weeding's not my favorite thing. Drawing is my favorite thing, and I'd rather be drawing. So I don't want to be weeding every single area of our yard to maintain things. So creeping thyme is an edible ground cover, as is creeping rosemary, and that one hangs over. And I try to denote that. Some of these look a little weird, how I have the style drawn, and that's it. So this is my illustrated garden journal. I will zoom in for close-ups. Okay, you can see that a little bit better, and you can see, like, I didn't do any backgrounds. I don't do a lot of backgrounds in my art anyway, but with some of these, like, trying to see what they look like, especially, where is the one? And my blueberry. Blueberries are delicious. They're just a lot of fun. 10 out of 10 recommend blueberries. If you can figure out your area and if you can grow those. And okay, like trying to draw white flowers. I have the palest gray colored pencil, and then did sort of a highlight and a shadow to get that to show up for my chamomile. But I have notes, and then I have, you know, the colors I used and all the names. So this is a 40-page sketchbook. Obviously it's not very big. It's about the size of my hand. So it's not terribly big, and these aren't absolutely huge detailed drawings. So I did 2 a day. And they ranged from a half an hour to an hour each, depending on how distracted I was. But I was doing a lot of reading, so definitely distracted, trying to figure out the best notes to put on here and stuff. Yeah, so it took me 20 days to fill this sketchbook. But 4 years it sat on my shelf. So it just was waiting for a purpose and a point. This was a lot of fun. It's going to be a guide. It's going to be helpful. My husband's going to put in notes. Like, there's tons of ways you can do illustrated garden journals. It doesn't have to be something that you're doing or have. It could be a dream garden journal. It could be a fantasy garden journal. You can invent your own flowers and leaves of things that don't exist. There's tons of different ways to do botanicals. You could anthropomorphize them and give them eyeballs and faces, and like it can be as silly and as fun and as weird and wonderful as you want it to be. So maybe you don't have the area for this stuff right now, but you want to in the future. You could do like a future one of things that are ideas, and you could read about each one and learn about what the growing process is for some of the plants that you've always dreamed about growing. Or you could invent some, or it could be all in watercolor, and you could do detailed watercolor studies and drawings of some of the things that interest you. I mean, maybe you're doing like an English rose garden and you want to, I don't know, want to paint something like that in a sketchbook or something of that sort. The Kokio paper it's lightly coated a little bit, so there is ghosting. You can see from my technical pen. I don't know that I wouldn't do painting so much in this book, but if you have like a watercolor sketchbook and you really want to get into botanicals and learning some of those things, one, check out your local library, check out the gardening books, check out the drawing books, the painting books, go to every single section that you think might have roses. I mean, even if it's like an autobiography about someone that hybridizes roses or something, you might find really cool illustrations that inspire and motivate and stuff. Everything can be inspirational in a library if you're hunting around looking for things. I use 3 books. I use Perennial Vegetables, The Well-Tended Perennial Garden, and Landscaping with Fruit. Landscaping with Fruit is a little redundant because it just like hones in on about 30 different fruits, but I used all those, and those were really helpful in inspiring me and giving me ideas and like trying to think outside the box with wanting most of our landscape to be edible. And having something like this that we can make notes in and be like, hey, it died. Like it said it grew in our area. It said it would be fine. It said it was perennial, but it died. Do not rebuy. Do not try again. Or, hey, this took over. So pull it out of the ground, stick it in a pot, have it be a potted plant, and stick something else in the ground that doesn't kill off everything next to it. So it's a lot of fun. And I learned a ton. And that's the point. And drawing is fun. So, I mean, some of these just look absolutely wonky because the plant is wonky. But, yeah, I recommend. So, I haven't done botanicals since October. So this was really good to stretch those sort of muscles, my botanical drawing muscles. I hope you enjoyed the sketchbook tour. Next week I will be announcing my June drawing challenge, which is going to take about 6 weeks to finish, 6 to 7 weeks depending on how, yeah, it's a big one. So if you want a sneak peek to that, head over to my Instagram where I'm already posting pictures of what I'm drawing every day in that sketchbook. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful week, and I will talk to you later. Bye.